In this video, I want to discuss a measurement on your DEXA report that's the most important about your health and disease risk. That measurement is what we call visceral fat. Let's start by defining what visceral fat is. For most people, getting in shape means reducing the amount of body fat that sits just beneath the skin. This fat is called subcutaneous fat. It's the fat you can pinch, and as it increases, it stops us from fitting into our clothes. But there is another type of fat that we cannot see, which sits inside the abdominal cavity around our vital organs. This is what we call visceral fat or bad fat. It's called bad fat because, unlike subcutaneous fat, visceral fat acts more like an organ itself, releasing hormones and inflammatory chemicals into the body near the liver, kidneys and pancreas. Too much visceral fat has been shown to increase the risk of obesity-related diseases such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, colon cancer, stroke and even dementia. Some research suggests it can also affect hunger levels and mood. Because you cannot see visceral fat and the consequences of it can be serious, it's well worth having a DEXA scan to understand your level of internal fat and your risk of developing some quite severe diseases. By using a very low dose of X-ray, a DEXA scan can see what is going on inside. Compare that to skin fold calipers, which can only measure subcutaneous fat, or bioimpedance scales that you might have at home. These scales measure resistance to electrical current, which simply travels up one leg and down the other, completely ignoring the upper body where visceral fat is stored. 3 medical thresholds apply to the visceral fat reading on your DEXA report. Below 100 is classed as normal. Between 100 and 160 puts you at increased risk. Above 160 is classed as high risk, meaning a greater chance of developing obesity-related diseases such as type 2 diabetes. Those thresholds may seem simple, but there are many caveats around the numbers. Men carry a lot more visceral fat than women. Visceral fat tends to increase with age and takes off around the late 40s and early 50s, so people under 30 typically have less than half that of people over 50. Ethnicity also plays a role. Black people have less than white people, who in turn have less than those with South Asian background. Women have lower visceral fat than men, but they accumulate it at a faster rate in later years. If you are concerned about visceral fat, here are some factors that put you at higher risk. A sedentary lifestyle, such as having a desk job or doing little to no exercise. Carrying excess fat in your upper body, particularly around your belly. Being over 50 or of South Asian background also increases your risk. So, how can you reduce visceral fat or keep it in check? The good news is that visceral fat shifts more quickly than subcutaneous fat. It builds up fast, but it also burns off faster. Here are 4 key tips. Reduce your overall body fat by consuming fewer calories. Eating slightly less makes a big difference. Maintain a balanced diet with plenty of fruit and vegetables. Increase physical activity. Visceral fat is metabolically active and responds well to exercise. Aim for at least 30 minutes of brisk walking daily. Manage stress and get enough sleep. Stress releases cortisol, a hormone that promotes fat storage around the belly. To sum up, we usually diet to lose the fat we can see and pinch, but the fat we cannot see, visceral fat, is far more dangerous. It raises the risk of life-altering diseases, including heart disease, cancer, diabetes and stroke. If you lead a sedentary lifestyle, overeat or have a poor diet, your visceral fat levels will continue to rise, eventually putting you at a high risk. A DEXA scan is a safe, low-cost way to assess your internal fat levels and health risks. Knowing your visceral fat reading can be a powerful motivator to take control of your health. We look forward to seeing you soon.